So with that being done, we can do the hard part. So now that we've got that working, I'm going to break it again. I just took out the text box that I had there just to show them, to make it real big. Oh no, I am gonna break it. I promise you. So I'm going to change kind of the parameters of what our task is one more time, which is that I was considering doing this cross-fading movie thing, but I think that's going to be a little bit out of the scope of our conversation and what we have time for today. So what I'm going to do is have it change the movie each time the movie that's playing is done. So it just cycles through them, in a loop. So in my video player one, so I'm going to get rid of this cross and movie in2 that we had going on here. And just take a look at our movie in1. And I'm going to bring back our friend, the info chop, that we previously had some liaison with, and drag the movie in top onto it, let go, and again.
Just real quick, so the info chop, by the way, can be used with a lot of different operators, not just the movie in. There's also an info dapt, which is a similar tool. And Greg, is there any documentation about which one is worked by info or not? Some of them do, some of them don't.
Well, info debt isn't doing anything for me right now.
In the wiki, the info chop is 99% of what you would use.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's just numbers. It would add gives text strings.
Okay.
And cool. This gives me again the index of my movie and how far it is through. So I'm going to add a select here. I'm just going to connect this up. It's worth noting that there's another method for me to do this. I could also reference the chop name up here in the parameter page. Chop name. And so I would get a little dotted arrow line, which are vastly more elegant than this ugly green thing we were using before. But the reason for my select chop is that I would like to whittle this torrent of information that info is providing down to things that would be useful for me. So in channel names, I'm going to type, what were we going to use? Index fraction. Or we can do the pop-up menu. So what's in this channel name box right now is star, which is everything. I'm going to remove star. And if I hit this arrow, I get a list of all of my possible options for channels to reference in this select. So I'm going to pick index fraction, and man, my life just got a lot simpler. So what I'm going to do at this point is put a logic chop in the chain, because what I want is a kind of trigger value, a 0 or 1, and I want this thing to go 1 when the index fraction gets to 1. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in an expression instead of logic. I'm sorry for that digression. And in my so this allows me to write in various expressions to control my chop. In the expert tab of that, I'm going to click on the expression button, and I have v, which is an internal variable to this expression, which equals the value coming in. And I'm going to say v is equal to 1, 2 equals, because I'm doing a comparison. And then we are going to wait 0.63 index fractions to see if this thing turns on or not, which is 1. There we go.
Yeah, but that's ugly.
It's not ideal.
Yeah.
But so I changed this a little bit because we don't actually know if this is going to trigger when this equals 1 or not. So I've changed it to have it when V is greater than 0.99, and actually if I really got down to it, I can say greater or equal to. And then what's going to happen is this index fraction value, the comparison is going to equal 1, and that's going to be my trigger for when to change my movie. So now I'm going to write the script that's going to change my movie value. And that's going to be triggered by this index fraction. Yes. This is a very prime time for a use of trail. So I'm going to put a trail in here, which is literally just showing a window of my value, graphed out of the values coming out of Express. And I'm changed the window length and the parameters to 10 seconds so that the thing won't just fly by and we can actually see what happens. We should get a nice and austere square wave when this thing goes to 1. We can fill our time by making a text stat. Boosh. I'm going to name this text stat change movie, and we're going to write a very short little script in here with one of our Sweet 16 commands called opparm. Opparm is what you're going to use, the command that you're going to use to set a parameter kind of in any operator anywhere. Oh, we're getting so close to this. And so the parameter that I'm going to want to set, now we got to wait for this thing. If I go out of here, here we go. Let's get our trail out.
Can we get
So
the
we
trail
got-
connected to this so I can see if it goes to 1?
Uh-oh, hurry. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Oh, God.
Oh, yes.
Dude, here it comes. The suspense. Bow! Oof.
Okay.
Right?
So now.
So it worked.
Huh?
Yeah.
So the movie trip points. So
Use
that's
is greater than number. We get the municipal trigger.
You won't with how I'm going to trigger it. No, that's going to be taken care of with our, and we'll see that in about 3 seconds here. So the parameter that I want this script to change is going to be this start row index parameter of the select one that we had earlier. And so the actual parameter name, if you hover over it, is row index start. So I'm going to go into this opparm, and I'm going to say, there's another thing I need to do, but that's fine. Put in the path of my DAT, which is up a level, select one. The parameter name that I want to modify, which is row index start, and the value that I want to pull for it, which actually we haven't made yet. I've just made the trigger and I haven't actually counted up a value to change this movie. So now I'm going to add this in the middle in this chain and get rid of my trail, since we're fairly confident of the logic of our operations here at this juncture. So what I'm going to want in this case is a count chop, and I want to hook up my expression to the channels to count inlet on this count chop, and then change. Oh, nope, that's not correct.
Just the limit.
It's fine, just like that. So I want to change my limit in the count tab of count chop, because I only have 3 movies in there, right? So I want to loop between min and max. My minimum is going to be 0, I really, I could put 3 in here because I know I have 3 movies, but the kind of baller way to do it is to go and use an expression called tab NR, which is going to pull the number of rows in whatever type of table I'm referencing. So it's the same type of story here, parentheses, and I reference my table, which is going to be ... select 1 still. Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. Movies 1, because that's the table with my entire gamut of movies listed. So tab NR will return the number of rows in this movie 1 table, which is 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to subtract 1 from it because my index is counting from 0 here, so I want a total of 3. And so that'll give me 2, and then when this thing counts, which we, actually have to wait for it then.
Choose the true points.
Yeah.
In the tabs, the rows
Yes.
I've just shortened my movie there. When that happens, now we see, lo and behold, my index fraction variable is counting up by 1 whole integer every time this movie index reaches 0.99 or greater. And so the last part of this command that we've been writing here is actually the value that you're going to want to set that parameter to. So what we're going to do is put in some backticks and a chop expression that we saw before.
Maybe that's
Habe ich den 3 definiert? Achso, die gibt es das Index raus.
okay. So now I guess it started off. Yeah, maybe.
That work? Row index start. Select 1 row index start.
Maybe I was
Oh, that's true. Of course. In count, in limit maximum, I did an expression tab NR. Here. No, here you go. Let me make it bigger for you. That's what I put in the limit. Oh yeah.
Sieht man den kaum? Ich sehe es immer nicht.
Ist wieder auf 0 gegangen. Bei der
I forgot the most important part, which is to say what this thing does. So we're almost there, and we can get on to fun stuff instead of this drudgery that I dragged you through. So now I have this script, and the last thing I did there was comment it, so we actually know what it does. If you do a pound sign, everything following it on the same line as a comment, so you can kind of keep some notes to yourself on what's going on in your world when you come back to it 3 years later for your maintenance contract. This was just a visual example, so I'm going to get rid of it. So the last thing I'm going to do here to make this work for me is use a DAT called chop execute. And the nomenclature on these is almost a little bit backwards. It's not executing a chop. It's executing a DAT when a chop changes. This is a DAT that executes on the change of a chop. So I'm going to make that unactive, and oops, I can't actually.
You just gotta-
I just pipe it in. I'll do it that time.
Why don't you change the chop execute that right here? Yeah, maybe click on the change movie.
I could just change it into. Okay. Yeah, I never
Delete the second one.
do that. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to delete that. Right click.
Change type.
Say change op type. So we're going to instead of piping this into a chop execute, I'm actually going to change the type of this DAT to a chop execute. You can just type right into the chop execute in the same way that I was doing by piping this text in there. So if I right click and say change op type in the menu, and then pick chop execute, which is thankfully the first thing in the list, then boom, I'm now a chop execute with my Opus still on display within the text box there. So the only other thing I need to do to make this run is reference my chop and channel via which I want to execute this script, which is going to be count 1 index fraction. So I can actually just, do the same thing, make my viewer active, grab the chop name, pull it.
No, that's
No.
drag the node over, so not this is the export.
Yeah,
This is the confusion again.
true.
Drag the node over.
Drag the node over. Boom, count 1. Oh, that wasn't very impressive.
And you can change it off to on.
And change this to
Just off to on.
execute when it goes from. No, I went on value change.
changes, yeah.
That was correct. On value change.
No, because you don't want it to count.
This
I see.
goes
Never
from
mind,
0.
never mind, yeah.
So now I have this script executing every time my movie index changes, which should then, unless we did something drastically wrong, change my movie here. Oh my God, it did. So now we are cycling through all 3 of our movies on the end of the current movie. So wait, do it here?
Yeah, just put the X space. And then go to bring up the export. And every time this thing changes, it'll print it out on the export. So
I have never used that.
diagnostic tool, there it is.
Ah.
So what came out on the export is the command is
Das
executed.
Schwimmen macht jetzt diese ganz kurzen Logo. Okay,
Right? So in the change movie script, if you wanted to diagnose what is running, put EX space, which is the execute, and
Although, for what it's worth, if you type this right, you're probably not going to be diagnosing it. Let's say for a second that I forgot my A because I have a weak pinky. Then in my text port, I would get this somewhat alarming group of text each time this index value of count 1 changed. And it will tell me here the path to the script that is protesting at me, as well as the command and reason that it's not working. So you can see here it says unknown command op perm because I forgot my A, but I'm going to re-add it.
So this is a pretty common sort of paradigm for creating events inside our text editor. We use this a lot, having scripts, lots of little scripts that run on different conditions being met. So this is really useful also when you start introducing external controls, or if you have OSC controllers with triggers and buttons or MIDI notes or anything like that, you can trigger scripts. And so these scripts can be used to, like we were talking about before, loading a different TOX file or changing the scene out completely. Or you can even shut down Touch Designer using scripting if you want to. You can spawn processes, launch other applications, put the software in perform mode if you want to. You can really do anything in Touch Designer through script. Anything that you can actually do with a mouse and clicking on a button, you can actually do with scripting. So it's a very, very powerful thing to get comfortable with. Unfortunately, T-Script is a little gnarly, but
And again,
Python's coming, so that will change.
the logical path I've gone through to do this here, because I think that's important to understand, is that, you know, I have my movie list with a select. I select via my start row index variable this movie name. That movie name is getting referenced with the file on my movie in via this tab expression, along with my media path variable that we've set. The info chop is pulling my fractional index of the movie, which is getting compared against you know, close to 1. And then this script is resetting that parameter in the select to select a new movie as soon as the old movie ends. So it's somewhat circuitous, but certainly fulfills our prime directive.
So you want to save that out?
Well, there's one more thing I want to do. Yeah, baby. Don't forget the noise, Taurus.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I've seen that. It's
Frustratingly against the. So I guess if it's an the difference is there's an expression. It's not a command. Yes.
Screwed that up.
No, that's true.
Screwed that up something fierce. Okay, so I guess the question is whether to go to Marcus's stuff or whether we can do some instancing or we do audio stuff. Okay. Good. I'm gonna say we instancing's probably too beyond our scope. Oh, you'd love that shit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we can do geometry. It's actually really easy. It's super easy.
They need an input, yeah. Then input.